Well, it's beginning to look a yacht like Christmas once again there, Cool Captain John.
You stole my line. I made
knew
that
it.
one up 2 years ago.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
But yep, here we are. It's getting to be the holiday season once again. And I'm getting in the mood for some yachty Christmas music as well
Indeed.
as others. How about you?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Well, and then let me also refresh your memory since I know you're getting up there in age. We like to do from time to time an album focus. And at times we've been lucky enough to have artists who actually recorded the albums sit in with us. Did that a couple times. And today we are just so lucky.
Yeah, and it's a tie into the holiday as well.
Yeah. So we're checking all the
Splendor
boxes.
for us. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, without further ado, let's spend some our Christmas with Orleans and bring in none other than Lance Hoppen. Lance, welcome back to the show.
Hey guys, good to see you. Been looking forward to this round two thing.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like it was all that long ago that we did round one, but here we are, Christmas time. So ready to go again.
It's August, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, and since then you've been doing some tour dates, which I presume went well, and you're looking forward to what's on the horizon for 2023.
Yeah, I think I think the main thing is going to be us. I think with it looks like Peter Beckett from Player, Walter Regan, John Ford Coley, like a mini yacht rock, like a little, us and with them as guests as opposed to multiple bands. We're going to try and make that more affordable for the promoters and more hits and compacted space like that. So,
and you'll be the backing band for them as you were before, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
so that's the idea, and also the idea of trio, Orleans as trio, which is would be challenging really to put it across that way, but that's another format we're going to explore.
Oh,
Cool.
All right.
Well, great. Looking forward to that next year. But until then, let's talk about what happened last year. And as John mentioned, we have an album that we'd like to go through with you. It is the New Star Shining album, of course.
Right here.
There it is.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
And of course, when we had you on in August, you started to tell some of the interesting tales of how this record came together. So we thought we'd have you back and go through it all in its entirety and do a whole episode to it. So you ready to dive in?
I am. Let me give you a little context. So when COVID hit in March of 2020, and then it sunk in that it was going to be a while. Then we got busy. Everyone learned some new skills: home recording, video, audio, and we wound up producing 4 new tracks for YouTube release. Right, and then as that got on, we thought, well, we've started an album here. Maybe we should finish, which got supplanted by the idea of let's do a Christmas album first because it has more of a deadline. So we started this album just around January 2021 with these new skills kind of under our belt, and we went from there. So that's the genesis of the idea and the project.
Well,
Right.
go ahead, John.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to start going into the track. So is that too soon?
Yeah. Let me just ask one other
All right.
question. And so you alluded to, and we'll get into this as we go through track by track, but this album came together in a number of different ways, right? There was sort of 3 different ways the songs kind of came together to create an album.
Right. So as we thought about, okay, we're going to make a holidays album, a Christmas album. What are we going to, what song? Where are they? Who's got what? So we polled each other, like, what do you got? What do you got? And pulled them from internal and external sources, and came up with a dozen songs that were, once again, eclectic, which is our nature. And everybody had a piece of it. John had some songs. I had some song ideas. Fly had some songs. And so out of nowhere, we had a dozen songs. So there we go. So let's figure it out. Now, some of these didn't need any revision. They were just like transplants. It actually breaks down in thirds. A third of them were transplants. A third of them we started from scratch, and a third of them had already had some kind of life. And we got the multi-tracks, whatever, pulled them apart, and then replaced things to make them current and more Orleansy if they weren't enough. So those are the 3 categories, I'd say.
Cool. All right, John.
Now can I go?
Yes.
Now you can go.
please.
Ask me a question.
Okay, well, track one, right? Let's go run them down. Track one is "New Star Shining." From what I understand, that was composed by John and Joanna, and this one, to me, Tom, has a vintage Orleans vocal blend going on there. Now, what I read about it is it was originally released on a compilation from back in 1994, a Woodstock compilation. Is this one of those that was lifted, or has this one been changed and rebuilt?
No, this was lifted as is, and yeah, you're right. In 1994, we were doing good business in Japan. We had done our 1990 live double album for the Japanese releases, and then we went to touring. So we had these connections over there through our friend Robbie Dupree.
Mm.
And then they wanted a thing called Woodstock Holidays was the CD, compilation CD. So we were to submit a track for that. And so New Star Shining, the Halls had written for Alabama, actually. And Alabama,
Oh,
they passed on it. They passed on it.
Oh,
But what happened was James Taylor and Ricky Skaggs cut it as a duet. So that was kind of falling upwards, in my opinion.
yeah.
Um, So we did our version in '94. It was Larry, my brother Larry, John Hall, myself, and Bob Lineback. Was in the band at that time. No drums, just quartet. And each guy got a half a verse. So we spread the vocals around very evenly, and I think it's really lush
Yeah.
and beautiful as is. So that appeared on that CD. It also appeared when we did another live compilation in 2002 and stuck it on there because it hadn't been on any Orleans thing. And then when it came down to this was a natural thing. And it was also a natural to name the album that. It just made sense. It's the most Christmassy, most Christmas story, Christmassy thing that we have on the record.
Yeah, it's a real strong track. I mean, it's a great way to start the record for me.
it's also a song that I discovered. Well, just as background, every year John and I do a rerun of our first ever Christmas episode that we recorded a few years ago. In part because that's what you do around the holidays, right? You try out all the Christmas reruns. Two, it gives us a week off from having to record. But one of the this was a track that I had discovered in trying to make a compilation of quote unquote yacht rock Christmas music, and I'm like, oh my god, there's an Orleans tune on there. And then I started finding a Firefalls tune, so now I have a whole playlist built out. So this was sort of part of my gateway into what do I call it? A very yachty Christmas. So let's move on to track two, Quiet Place, which has a little bit of different vibe, and I'm curious how this song came to be.
This is my favorite in terms of production. This is the most interesting. So John had recorded this song earlier, some album he had in the '90s, and he didn't have the multi-tracks. What we had was a mix, and it was very, very simple. Acoustic guitar, vocal, little bit of pad, very faint bass, not much on it, just very sparse. And John Sebastian playing harp. So that was it. It was very scaled down. So in hearing this, I heard a big vocal arrangement, and I heard this drum thing in my head, which really lent itself, I thought, really well to the lyric. Now, at this time, John was very busy. Like he was not only moving, kind of living half in New York and half in Nashville, getting divorced, making his own solo album, falling in love. I mean,
That's all.
it was like, okay, so like, hey, John, hello, can you show up? But like he was preoccupied, and so I took the reins on this project with our mixer, our engineer friend Mike Malfisi, who's I've been working with since 1980. And so we kind of had free run. And so in doing this track, I had to translate what I heard in my head. And the method was I recorded all the various vocal parts myself, I just laid it all out there, submitted it to John. He made a couple of comments, and then I tweaked it. And then once we agreed on that, I sent it out. I sent the part out to my brother Lane, who's in the band, Fly Amaro. I sent, you sing this part, you sing that part, you send it back to me. And so that's how, my ideas were translated into their homework, and then back at me. And then when it came to the drum thing, I heard I heard this marching drum cadence, this whole thing, and I had to relay that to Brady, our drummer. And it's the kind of track. It's not a click track. It's a very ebb and flow. The tempo changes from section to section on purpose. There's nothing like that. So how do you do drums over that? Well, you do it one at a time. So I said, play the kick drum. Here's the pattern. Get as close as you can to where it belongs, and then we'll digitally edit and refine it. And then once that's done, okay, well, now do this snare drum part. Get that, and do it 3 times, do it 4 times, match them up. Now do this big tom and make sure it lands on the one. So, and then, okay, well, now it's time for the congas. So same thing, like one at a time. Then we manipulate it a little bit and make sure it feels right. And then full kit over top. Okay, now we're done. So it sounds like it's done all at once, but it's really piecemeal, right? And it was a little bit shocking. It was shocking to John and to my manager when they heard "Get the boom," and I heard these big drums come in. He was like, "Whoa!"
Wow.
So I had to kind of sell it and get them used to it and mix it just so. But I'm really pleased and proud of that production from where it was, that simple recording to what it became, which I think is really cool.
Building up the drum track a piece at a time. Didn't you do that? This goes back to our other interview. Didn't you do that on Dance With Me to a certain degree? Obviously, there were lesser parts, but
that's how Dance With Me was done.
Yeah,
back in 1975. Yeah. And I've been listening to everything recently because well, it's a whole other story. But the original recording of Dance With Me, because there were 2 of them, had no drums whatsoever.
Right.
I think it maybe had change in the pocket.
Oh, yeah.
That's about it, So when we went to record it the second time, which became the hit time, yeah, that was kick drum first, top drums later. That's how it was done. So I kind of, when we came to Quiet Place, I had that stored in the back of my head from, 35 years ago. Well, this is how we're going to do that, and then Brady just followed my lead, and there you go.
Well, I take back what I said about your memory earlier, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, you banked that one.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So, but you're right, too, what you said earlier, Lance, is that the drum, particularly the march part of it, totally fits with the theme of the song. And I can't imagine it being any other way.
It's very militaristic, right? That whole thing sounds military. And that second verse is about, it's really about Herod coming through and taking all the babies. And, so that's what the lyric, it just made total sense to me. But I had to do a little convincing on the back end.
All right, then we have a significant mood change, jingling in New England, and now this is the start of a process for me learning a little bit more about Fly, and he brings a lot to the party on this record, which I'll kind of get to later on. But this one's classic 50s style, jazzy guitar, almost like a early Les Paul type of track or something. I'm trying to place who his guitar style is on this one.
I think it's modeled after Bill Haley and the Comets.
There we go. Yeah, I was also going to say like an Elvis Christmas song too. Like
where the guitar is really dry and really loud, like in these fills, it's like that. So he wanted it just that way,
But it brings that nostalgic feel to Christmas songs, which, to have a newer song have that nostalgic feel, that's a gem for me.
Right. So he and his wife live in Gloucester, Mass. They wrote that song together. They were out and about for Christmas and making observations. And so they wrote Jingling in New England. And that was all done. He had a version of it. We took the tracks, we took them apart. And all it wanted from us was an enhancement of the background vocal thing, right? And Lean's voices and a couple of other ideas that weren't spelled out in the first one. And there's even a woman on there from his first recording. Her name fails me right now, but she's been left in there too. So this was one of those, it didn't need a lot of doctoring, but all the players, that session he had up there, that was fine. There was no point replacing any of that, but we added our vocal style to it to make it our own.
I want to drop in just a little bit of that guitar solo though, right here.
All right, cool.
Right, there you go. Beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah, my note on it was this is a fun little tune. It's like rockabilly meets Randy Newman. It's
Yeah, that's good.
yeah. So and I thought I heard a female voice in there. I was going to ask you who that was. So that's good. Cool, fun tune. Well, now we are moving on to my personal favorite off the album. I don't know if you remember me telling you that last time, Lance, but I really, for whatever reason, I really get touched by Mary's Christmas.
Mary's Christmas. I'm not sure who the writers are. It was recorded by Little River Band, and we learned this song when Wayne Nelson, who's the head guy there, the singing bass player, Little River Band. We're friends, and this had to be 2016 or 17 or 15, somewhere in there. He had been doing a charity holiday show down in Florida, and for 2 years running, Little River Band was the house band, and he said, "We can't do that again. Will you guys be the house band?" So we went to do that show for him, and he had a couple of songs to sing, and also Joe Puerta from Ambrosia had a couple of songs to sing. We'll get there later, but that's where we learned Mary's Christmas, and we all loved it. So that was kind of in the back of my mind. Well, let's see about that. And then in wanting to cut it, it was, well, I asked Wayne, and can we use your keyboard tracks? Because they kind of define the thing, is that going to be okay? Like, that would be a place for us to get a head start on the thing. And they consented. So the strings, the piano, that was from their track. And we just then went about filling in everything else. And I'm, to toot my own horn, I'm really, really pleased with that lead vocal. I think it sells the song really nice.
Oh yeah.
And the only drawback is because it is so much like their version, because their version was so spot on, then it's kind of hard to have that break through when you're covering the original so closely, right?
Yeah, and theirs wasn't that long ago, 2011 or somewhere around there, was it?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Something like that. So,
Yeah.
I'm pleased with it as a piece,
Piece of work, yeah.
Yeah, it works.
Oh, I
well.
love it. It's I said, my favorite. Can you verify something for me? Because John, I don't even remember. Let's see if you remember this now. When we first recorded the Christmas special episode, I had a number of tunes off that 2011 compilation by Little River Band. And you asked me, you said, is this the good Little River Band or the people out there pretending to be Little River Band? I didn't know. So this turns out to be the good Little River Band, right, Lance?
Yeah. Well, it depends on what you mean by that. The original, the three main guys, the three Australian guys that were in fact Little River Band, I mean, they acquiesced, they quit. I mean, they folded.
Yeah.
So they were done, right? But Wayne, who was, I think, the second bass player or the third, I don't know when he came in, he kept it going, and in a good way. And ultimately there was a lawsuit about that, like who owns this thing, and Wayne won. Like the judge saw that he had kept the business alive and that these guys couldn't reclaim the title. So that's how that goes. And I think there's one guy from the original band, one of the guitar players, still playing with him. But we work with them, on occasion, and they do a great job.
Good, cool. Good. All right, John, where are we going next?
We're going to track 5. I don't have notes on this one because I kind of picked a few specific ones I wanted to hit on. You got anything on I Wish I Could Have Been There before we hand it off to Lance to take us through it?
Just that I heard some bluegrass in this one, which is another new sound now being introduced to a record that really is cohesive, but it explores a lot of different kind of sound areas, I think. So, Lance, what do you got on this one?
This is one of John's songs that he wrote with a guy named Tad Richards, who lives up in Woodstock. Tad's very clever lyricist, and had this particular take on, it's a farmer going out to take care of his lamb on Christmas Eve. It's that kind of setting in this, and it's very much like on the order of the band. It's that kind of style, and we didn't mince words about it. We just kind of, this is the band, right? Let's sound like the band.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
So the vocals are not double tracked. Everything is one track. It's not supposed to be sweet and pretty. It's supposed to be, very, very real. It's John, myself, and Fly do the basic thing. And Billy Payne played.
Yeah.
We sent it out. Billy Payne from Little Feat.
Little Feat. Yep.
Sent it out to him to do the piano.
Oh, cool.
And I sent it to John Jorgensen, who's a very good friend of mine, to play mandolin because he's stellar. He's not only a great guitarist, he's a great everything. So he put mandolin on it, and yeah, I think there's no fiddle on this one, right? That's another song. But yeah, so the elements came and was again. So John and I and Brady went into a studio, cut the basic track live, only used the drums, then went back and started from there and built it with these ringers, bringing in these ringers.
The ringers.
And just to clarify, this was recorded in the 2020 session, right?
2021, yeah.
Yeah, 2021. Okay, cool. Interesting. All right. Well, if there's nothing else on that one, I wanted to move on to A Sound of Christmas, because that again brings back the traditional sort of Orleans way with the trade and vocals, and this was another one of my favorites.
So this song was co-written by Chip Martin. Chip Martin is a good buddy of mine. He and I and Brady and one other guy, we had a Elton John tribute band here in Nashville for a while, pre-COVID. And when John had to take a leave of absence from the road in the summer of 19, Chip came into Orleans to fill those shoes, and it looked like it was going to be maybe permanent until John said, "I'm ready to come back." And so Chip had about a 6-month stint with us, and then COVID hit.
Mm.
So, and again, in searching for songs, I guess this was a song that one of the trips here that Fly came to rehearse, and he stayed at Chip's house, and Chip played him this song. So Fly had that in the back of his head somewhere, and he presented it to me. I said, "Yeah, let's do that." So we used a bunch of Chip's tracks from his version, a lot of guitars. We replaced bass drums, a lot of vocals, of course, but we used a lot of the stuff from his original recording and then enhanced that. And yeah, we approached it much like New Star Shining, where each verse, a different guy has a vocal. Starts with John, goes to me, Lane, the bridge goes to Lane, second bridge comes back to Fly. So it's all spread around that way. And yeah, it's a very sweet, it's a very Southern song,
Yeah.
Family, grandpa, daddy said, all that stuff, in the lyric. And there's a country version of it.
As you say that, I'm reminded of something my kids might say, which this is a mood. They'd say, "Oh, that's such a mood." When you put this record on, it is a mood. It's a Christmassy mood. It's a balance between like the painting that you just kind of painted there, as well as it's got all of the religious undertones as well. So it really just feels like Christmas, John.
Good.
Yeah. I don't get the feeling from some records, I get the feeling they're trying to reinvent what Christmas should sound like. This is not. This is saying we know what Christmas sounds like, and it sounds like these things. It's very nostalgic feeling.
Yeah.
Well, just at this point, published finally our new website, and in building the store and putting every product, every album, everything has a story that on its own page, about it. And I put a headline in green and red that says, "This is not your grandpa's Christmas album."
It's really good.
It's not that. It's different.
Yeah. The next song, I'm going to let you tell the story about the intro, but the question I had on it, the song is called "Mary Had a Baby," and I remember. There's something else I remember, Tom, that when I asked about what part you sing vocally, you said I play the bass and sing the high parts. Now, are you singing the high parts on this one?
Yeah, so let me tell you. Let me tell you about this song.
Right.
So "Mary Had a Baby" is as it turns out, and I didn't know this until I looked it up, or we looked it up. It's an Afro-American spiritual traditional. That's where it comes from.
Okay.
Now, where I learned it was from my mother. My mother played organ at one point for a church, and in the mid 80s we were all home, all the siblings, and we learned a couple of songs to perform in the Christmas service with her, for her, and this was one of them. So we did a quartet vocal arrangement, my two brothers and my older sister, and my mom playing piano. So That was captured, thankfully, the rehearsal was captured on this little, those little cassette players
Yeah.
with the
Like the
built-in
micro cassette, the
condenser.
mini one.
It's like this big, and the condenser mic and the little
Oh yeah.
speaker. Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of from the 70s, 80s. So that was on her piano, and it captured this. So the opening cadence is from that, is right from those recordings, processed and made to be as good as it could be. So then
Wow.
the rest of it had to be done from scratch, and it couldn't be done in the original key because my sister's soprano part was just too high. It was too high for me. And I had to figure out, again, because I'm going to send out all the parts, right? So I have to figure out what key is not too high, not too low
Mm-hmm.
for the bottom and the top part. So for me to sing the top part, it was a stretch. And to be honest, and people who know recording will get this part of it. There's a key change, and it goes even higher later.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff I had to sing it with everything pitched down, like either a half step or a whole step, so that I could hit the notes and then pitch it back up to where it all belongs. So I had to, my part is it was a bit of a stretch, and I had to do mine first because then each guy had to match their phrasing as best they could to me. And again, we're not talking about quick track. We're talking about ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of it is just intuition. So it goes, I'm on the top. I think Fly is next, and Lane, and then John on the bass part. Lane, I initially asked Lane, play the piano as close as you can to the timing that mom put down. So he played his piano to her track.
Wow.
Ah.
And we took it away, changed the key, it's like
Oh
that.
wow.
Like a
Oh,
lot of
man.
stuff. A lot of stuff.
Woo.
You do the piano in MIDI, so
Yeah,
that
so you can
when you
change.
change it, it doesn't make it all funky, right?
Right.
Like so that was a lot of process, but in the end it comes out as very homegrown, and then very churchy, because on top of the piano and the four vocals, I asked John's new wife, Andrea, who is Andrea Zahn, who is a stellar violinist, tours with James Taylor these days. I asked her to put together a string quartet, and she and I composed the chart for it, and then she did her magic with herself and one other player.
Mm.
So it's just piano, voices, and string quartet.
Wow. So she's probably playing the viola and the two violins, and then someone else on the cello or something like that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool.
Very cool. And so you're doing, for all of these songs, you're doing all of the editing personally, Lance? I mean, this is a ton of work.
No, the editing per se was Mike Malfisi, my co-producer, my engineer friend, and he did a yeoman's job. I mean, talking 1,000+ hours of home studio time over the course of 6 or 7 months,
Yeah.
And we discovered a few things. There's lots of tools. We discovered a tool that can take, like I'm saying, I sing a thing and then the guy's got to match my phrasing. Well, there's a plugin, recording plugin, that will make people fit.
Yeah, for better or for worse. Yeah, Vocal Align will do
exactly.
that.
Right, Vocal Line, right?
Yeah.
Vocal Line. So
Yep.
so after he tore his hair out about Mary Had a Baby, with making that all work, then we found this program, and
Oh, no.
yeah, and the rest of the album went a whole lot easier.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm not the recording aficionado that either of you are, but I will tell the kids at home, if you're operating one of those mini cassette recorders, you have to hit play and record at the same time.
The red button has to come down. Yeah.
Yep,
Right.
exactly. So
Very
let's
good.
keep that in the back of your
Old
mind.
school, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Where are we next, Tom?
we're shifting gears. We're going to kick it up a notch in terms of tempo and energy, maybe. And that's a little country rock ditty called Snowed In With You.
Go
That's
in
one
with
of
you. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say this is one of John's songs, right?
John and Johanna
Yeah.
wrote this, I think back in the 90s. His then wife and prolific writing partner, Johanna Hall. And it never got recorded anywhere. he said. So it's not Christmassy so much as it's seasonal, right?
Hmm.
And so we did that from scratch. We did it in the same session that we cut the other track for Wish I Could Have Been There. John, me, and Brady kept the drums, built it from there. Dan Dugmore is playing steel. Dan is you hear him on all kinds of Linda Ronstadt records and
Oh, okay.
California country steel.
Okay.
He's the guy. Um, and Andrea's playing fiddle on it. Yeah, so it's an interplay between the fiddle and the steel and this kind of two beat that kind of groove, So it had its place.
Absolutely. John, did you have anything else on that one?
No, I was looking at what was next here. So we've got I'm Coming Home for Christmas, track 9 on the album. I'm Coming Home for Christmas. Tell us about this one because I don't recognize the writer on this one, do I? No, I don't. Who is that?
Yeah, his name is
Bill Fordresher? I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah. So this was I mentioned earlier the Christmas show we did for Wayne, where I learned Mary's Christmas.
Yeah.
Right. And also Joe Puerta from Ambrosia was on that show. And one of the songs he sang was this I'm Coming Home for Christmas. That's where I had got that from in the back of my brain. And we resurrected that. So that the writer is a friend of his who he's a publisher or he's in the biz.
Okay.
And he couldn't get that song cut. And so Joe cut it with him for him many years ago. And then so I learned it. I thought it was worth cutting, and it's kind of we did that from scratch. And I was thinking John Lennon, really.
Oh, okay.
If you hear like the raunchy backbeat guitar, it's like it's like oh darling, it's got some Beatles stuff in it.
Yeah.
We tried to make it even more Beatley, but it was a little over the top. But it has a harpsichord, keyboard. It's like just got those kind of elements in it.
You had to cut out the Mellotron flutes, huh?
Yeah, we couldn't get access to those. Mellotron's hard to come by these days.
Yeah, no kidding.
No, but that's kind of like anyway, that's some of the inspiration of how it was put together. John put the ding 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 ding, over the top. That was his contribution, getting those arpeggiated rhythm things in, and Fly did the raunchy stuff.
Yeah, that type of arpeggiation in 6/8 time just takes me back in time to
it does.
Right? So it's the 60s again.
Yeah.
Again, more nostalgia. Well, let's genre shift once again because the next number is like this jazzy piano tune called I Wish I Could Fly.
Yeah, so now we're getting into the tail end of this. I Wish I Could Fly was another one that just came as is. Fly already had this cut. It was beautiful in its own right.
Love it. Yeah.
It's very kind of 40s, I think.
It's like Barney Kessel on guitar on this one, man.
Yeah, it's really nice. Very like not jazz so much as 40s, like standard.
Yeah, if you change the vocal, it could be like a Julie London record or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's very sweet and didn't want to be tampered with.
Yeah.
And he used all his guys up there. So.
When did he record that?
It's not clear to me, Fly has his own comedic career. He has a whole album. I don't know if you ever saw the light of day. It's called Cracked Country Christmas. And it's all parody and strange. So Fly's got his own thing going on. And this other side of him, this old school kind of stuff, it's another side of him. So we wanted those things to be included.
Cool.
And then now you go into the next one.
Yeah. I imagine there's some story on this one. This one's quite produced. Winter Wonderland, Walked into Winter Wonderland, right? Sort of. It feels like a New Orleans swing kind of. It's very arranged, big horn arrangement. It's got the melodica we're familiar with from Orleans is in there.
Yeah.
And they even catches you off guard with a key change at the end. Just when you think it's done, here comes the key change, right?
this to me is very much like New York, that kind of style.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So here's the story. This is a nice serendipity. Back in 2017, I think it was, I got an email from a guy. Of course, my brother, Larry, he passed in 2012. So I got an email from a guy saying that he had recorded this Winter Wonderland with Larry, and would I be interested in replacing the bass on it, like putting a bass track on it. I thought it was a nice gesture. I didn't have home recording capability at the time, and as it turned out, I never got down to Florida to do that. So time went by. In 2020, when I was searching the web for video content with which to send something really cool and relevant every week to our Facebook crowd or YouTube crowd, I came across so much, and I stored it all. And one thing I forgot that I had found was the YouTube of this Winter Wonderland of that Larry had done. And so I just kind of stumbled over it again when I was going through stuff. And then I tried to contact the recordist because I had that email from 4 years prior, and I could not find him. Googled him, I couldn't find him. Kept asking because he had offered to do whatever you want with it, right? And
Right.
I just wanted to confirm that before we put it on a record, and I could not find him. So it went right up to. So if I had found him, we might have gotten at the multi tracks and done some vocal stuff. But again, it is as is, and it's very fun the way it is.
Yeah.
Addendum to this story, I did eventually find him, and he was really happy that we were using this track, and he came to St. Pete, a show there, and I met the guy, and so everybody was a win-win. And as it turns out, the bass player on the track is my good friend Barry Dunaway, who I've done a lot of work with through Larry. So there was no point replacing Barry's bass, which was just fine. But this is how between New Star Shining and Winter Wonderland, Larry gets to participate in the album posthumously. That was very cool.
When he's in Mary Had a Baby too, right? Is he a part of that group? The intro?
The intro.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
This was cameo. Yeah.
Right.
Very cool. And so you say that was recorded in 2010, right? Originally?
I think that might be right. Yeah, it's probably true.
And so when you said Larry recorded, who else is with him? Who's the band? Who's do you remember who he was collaborating
I'd have
with?
to go look again at the credit list. It's quite it's rather large. I think this was done for some charity thing, which was very much like Larry to have contributed that way.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure he brought in some players, as did the recordist, the engineer. But I was not aware of it happening at the time, and I only found out years later, and then it just was there when the right moment struck.
Yeah. Well, I love it. It's a great tune. I'm
I do
so
too.
glad that you were able
Very
to
fun.
include it.
Very fun. And it is very New York. That's
Yeah.
Yep. Well, you mentioned Fly having his quote unquote own thing going on, which brings us
now
to
I think I understand this last song.
because I had a question mark as well, but now it all seems to become clear. This is
Yeah,
the
it does.
Ballad of the Christmas Cowboy.
The Ballad of the Christmas Day Cowboy. Yeah, this is one of his comedic songs.
It's so good though. Man.
John had trepidation about including it. He would have been fine leaving it off, and we went back and forth about it. And we had to shorten it because it had a whole intro like Marty Robbins, like out in the western town of Del Paso. Just like that. It had a big preamble. We had to cut that out, and then the fade goes on forever on his shorten that. So we could compacted it a little bit, but the lyric is basically, Santa's flying over, but this fair maiden, out in the range, toothless, in the dentist chair, like, Santa, I loved you.
That is so funny.
It's ridiculous, and punchline is something like, he would have married her if he only understood what she was talking
Yeah,
about. So it's pretty funny.
really
Very,
enjoyable. Yeah.
very lush, robust production, like over the top production. It's just so
Well,
that takes us out on the album.
yeah, if you don't know what you're listening for the first time, it's like it catches you by surprise. As soon as the first time the slurpy voice comes in, you're like, wait, now what is going on here?
It's a fun way to close the album. I don't know where else you would have put it, frankly. But
Nowhere.
Well, either first
I'm just
or
glad.
last.
Yeah, I'm
It's
glad
the
we
kind of
stuck
thing.
it
So
out.
if you play it, and you're done hearing, you don't want to hear that again. You don't have to play the last cut.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. Cool. Well, altogether, the album comes together despite us saying it represents multiple genres. It really is a cohesive record. That last lisp notwithstanding, it's awesome, and it puts us in the Christmas mood just in time for the holidays.
Well, that's great because and if anybody's interested in acquiring it, you can get it from our all new OrleansOnline.net. .com is no longer. OrleansOnline.net is where we live now, and the site is very cool, very very full. Like it's like a library. It's got amazing history and really I'm very pleased. It took a year to put this thing together, but so this is just the store, just one part of it, and then read to your heart's content.
Yeah,
Right.
and hopefully,
Orleans.
go
Well,
ahead.
I was just gonna. I just want to repeat that only because he's on Zoom. So Orleans.net. Is that right?
Orleans Online.
OrleansOnline.net.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And it is available on CD because we saw Lance hold one up. If you're listening on the podcast, we saw physical format.
Yep.
You could buy it, and it's available on all other platforms as well.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And on this new website, you were threatening to have our original interview, the video posted. So hopefully people can go find that as well.
At the moment, the August podcast is number one. That page of Orleans of interviews I have so much content to upload, but starting from recent history, it'll go backwards. So
Cool.
The one we did in August right now is very prominently featured.
Awesome.
Excellent. That's how we like it.
That's right. All right. And if anything else comes along to supplant it, well, then we'll just have to upload this video interview.
Well,
There we go.
This will go on and be first now.
All right, yeah, cool. Good. Well, thanks again, Lance. This was a lot of fun. I really do recommend the record, and we'll have to catch up with you again in 2023 and see what the new touring schedule holds for you.
We shall see. This has been year 50, and there will be a year 51. It's just like, how long can this go on? How long has this been going on, right?
Yeah.
Hey,
Well, that'll
forever.
be Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, right?
We shall see. We
All
shall
right.
see.
All right. Thanks again, Lance, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey, guys. Thank you.